Hi, I'm CJ and this is my RC channel. There was one thing I forgot to tell you. As I described this side, pinning down this edge and taking the leading edge, plugging in these pieces into the correct holes and then laying that down as a single unit, you want to do something similar with the non-moving portion of the stabilizer. What I did was I put these ribs into the holes. Make sure that you have this stuff going in the right direction. Okay, if you look here, you can see that there are these little raised nubs here, 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 etc., all the way down. That elevates this piece to a very specific height, the same way that these little tabs, which will get cut off later, are on the ribs. Hope I'm holding that where it can be seen. Yeah, those little tabs, those hold this at the correct level to match up with the round nubs on the trailing edge. So those, it goes together easier if you put those in and then slide this piece into the slots as it, and then you've got this. So that's how I would recommend doing it. I fiddled with it a little bit and that seemed like the easiest way. Another little trick. Okay, I tack down the top and the bottom, and then I just put a little drop right at the end, and the CA wicks right along that seam and glues it in place. Now, when you do the other side, you don't want these tabs to be a pain in the neck. You don't want to have to try to sand them off. If you put a drop of CA glue here, it's going to wick right in there and it's going to make these harder to get off. So once you've got, you know, this edge tacked and you've got the top of these tacked, these just, well, it's hard to do with one hand. These pop right off. I mean, it takes no effort. And now you can do the exact same thing. Just put a drop of CA right here and bingo. The little bit of flashing here, that can be sanded off later, or if you want to sand it off before gluing, as your choice. So that is it for the tail section. Okay, just wanted to show you the final touches. I've already gone ahead and trimmed the extra wood that protrudes here at the trailing edge. I would definitely pin the movable surfaces down again when you are doing these diagonals. Just like on the wing, these are going to add a lot of torsional strength, and so you don't want this piece to be at an angle. You don't want any twist in it. You want it to be perfectly flat. So pin it down so that it's tight to your work surface. Hopefully you are working on a foam board. I highly recommend that. If you're not doing that, you know, maybe you've got a metal table and you're using magnets. I've seen that type of system, but you definitely need some way to do this. And when you consider how cheap a piece of foam board is at Lowe's or someplace like that, there's no excuse to not go and get yourself a piece. I mean, a large, like 4 foot by 8 or larger sheet is maybe $20 or so. You know, if it's too big to fit in your car, you know, buy yourself a box knife or bring one with you and cut it into, you know, pieces that are going to give you work surface of an appropriate size, and you know, toss the scrap. But definitely, you know, set yourself up like that. Now, doing the crossbars on these, pinning it down is going to be a little harder to do properly. Just try to make sure that you don't have twist when you set this up. So I'm going to be pinning down the trailing edge and pinning at the center of these bars. So basically, I'll sink a pin in right about the midpoint like that, and then pin at the rear. So I'll show that in a minute if that wasn't clear. This section, everything is in place. Nothing has been glued yet. Sand these per the directions so this end fits in to the corner and you have the best contact area, and then, you know, sand anything you need to make sure they fit. You want this side to be level. At this end, you want the end to be centered with this, with the leading edge piece of wood. So if basically like that. So everything is fitted, and now I can just go and tack glue everything, and that should be about it. Now you want to take off the nubs that are on the bottom of this edge. Those are just for doing layup. You can snap them off with a pair of needle nose probably. What I did was just use an X-Acto knife, and it's almost as if they're kind of pre-cut. They came off very easily and very cleanly. So that was nice. I really have to compliment the designer of this kit, the gentleman who put this plane together, who imagined this and designed it and made it real, have just done a phenomenal job. I mean, it's a complicated kit as most gliders go. They've put a tremendous amount of thought into it. There's a lot of small pieces, but everything fits perfectly. And, you know, to a certain degree, we can thank laser cut balsa wood for that. But it's also just a fabulously engineered design. They've obviously, you know, built numerous prototypes and done a tremendous amount of testing. These are actually airfoils. A lot of gliders, you would just have, you know, lay up some sticks and, you know, sand leading and trailing edge, and, you know, bingo bango, you've got yourself a tail section. And not only, you know, have they put a tremendous amount of effort into making this as light and as rigid as possible, but it is my understanding from having talked to one of the gentlemen that these tail surfaces are actually a functioning airfoil that works with the main wing. So it's not just there to, you know, have airflow over it and do nothing other than change direction. It actually works in concert with the wing's airfoil. So you're definitely getting a lot of you're definitely getting your money's worth with this kit when it comes to the quality of the wood, the quality of the design. It's phenomenal. I cannot wait to get this in the air. Okay, I have joined the two non-moving sections of the rudder vader, and this is just done at a 90 degree, and excuse me, they recommend using contact cement. I did not have contact cement, and so what I did was I basically lined up the piece of 1/2 inch. I trimmed it to here because I did the glass over here a different way. So I cut a piece of 1/2 inch that was the length of this balsa section, and I basically tacked it in place like here and here with a couple drops of thin CA. Then I took a piece of plastic sheet and I took Slow Zap and I put Slow Zap all over the cloth, not to the point of beyond oversaturation, but just enough that it would be moist, and then covered the whole joint with a piece of plastic and basically slicked it down to either side, and then pinned it in place with a couple of these. These are real handy. They are just 1x2x3 blocks of solid steel, and they definitely weigh like it. I got these on Amazon. It's a tool that people who work with lathes and other type of metalwork use, and they come in real handy for hobbyists because you can prop things up, and like let's say you're putting a fuselage together or something like that. You've got 90-degree angles, and if you've got several of them, they're nice and heavy, and you can hold things together, or keep multiple sections upright at right angles, and they're handy. So what I did was I laid one down, slicked the plastic along the edge here, and then put another one like that and held them in place until the Slow Zap dried, and that left me with a nice light and tight joint. And for this section, I used some of that ultra fine 3/4 ounce fiberglass that I have on my own, and I cut a small rectangle about 1 inch by 3/4 of an inch, and put a little bit of 5-minute epoxy on these hardwood surfaces here and here, and just a super light coat. And then I, with gloves, put a little bit of glue on the cloth, worked it into the cloth, and then stretched the cloth over the joint here and folded over the other side. And then I took another piece of clear plastic and stretched it over it tight like a vacuum bag, and you can see a few little ripple marks where the plastic bag rippled, but they're not deep or anything, and I can give them a light sand if I want to, but I don't think there's any need. It didn't add very much weight at all, and that super fine fiberglass, you can't even see the texture of it. It's like there's nothing there but glue, but it makes for a very sturdy joint there, because the fiberglass cloth is wrapped around 3 sides of the wood, and a little bit of it into this trough here. And again, just basically, let me see if I've got a piece of scrap right here. Yeah, just take the plastic and stretch it around it, and then hold it in place for 5 minutes while it dries, and peel the plastic away. You're all set. I've been doing that for a long time, and it definitely provides decent results in the absence of it's kind of you're not going to be able to vacuum bag a little joint like this. It's just not possible. But as you can see, it did the job very nicely. So I'm ready to move on to the next steps and start prepping this to go onto the boom. Per their directions, I took a piece of the leftover triangle stock and cut it to this line. That's going to provide basically a bump stop, because when you glue this onto the boom, you're basically hanging it over the boom like this, so you can't see how far the boom is, how far it is underneath here. And having that little bump stop to catch the edge of the boom is a very nice idea that they recommend. It doesn't add any negligible amount of weight. I just glued that in place with a little bit of thin CA before I did the fiberglassing on this joint here. So there we go. Let's see if there's anything else I need to cover. Oh, before I did the gluing, I did the sanding on this. I rounded these edges all the way up, smoothed the top edge, took off the excess material at the top of this that protrudes above the balsa. Put a nice edge on here, and I did a little bit of sanding on these because there was a little bit of a few rough spots where these little nubs were, and so I sanded those and then sanded the top, and that's a lot easier to do when it's apart. It's a lot harder to do when it's already glued together in a V. You're more likely to break something, so that's what I would do. Yeah, that's what I did. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please click like and please subscribe to my channel. If you click the bell icon, you'll receive notifications every time I launch a new video. Thank you for watching.